Welcome, everyone, to You Be the Judge every Wednesday at 6 p.m. You can always find this on all of your podcast channels. You just put in Bridges Live, You Be the Judge, and it would pop on up. We have the three hosts of ours. I'm Dr. Paul Dyer. We have Judge Claudia Barber. And we have Marilyn Pierre, who's running for Circuit Court Judge in Montgomery County of Maryland. I do like to make this a short promo for Marilyn, who's running for Circuit Court Judge. Send money. That's it. Thank you. You can go to Maryland for Maryland, right? Or is it Pierre?
Oh, pierreforjudge.com.
Pierreforjudge.com. There you go. Pierreforjudge.com. Pierreforjudge.com. Pierre forjudge.com. Thank you. Now we're going on to You Be the Judge. You Be the Judge is about a show that we like to be informed, understanding, and hopefully that develops you into an action. A lot of things we talk about has happened, is happening, and we're just sick and tired of it. And I've been writing this article just recently. It's really about, aren't we sick and tired of being sick and tired? I mean, there's just so much going on, and then when Desmond Tutu died, it affected me in such a way that I was like, I actually put my hands to my head when I saw the news. And that's because when we're fighting for human rights, justice, equality, we just keep spinning around like we are a Chucky doll or something. It makes us scream our heads off because, and then the oppositions, and it's not a color issue, but the oppositions they minimize it, and they throw out these fragmented verbal bombs at us so we can argue amongst ourselves so they can continue to do what they do, right? They're like, if you teach this, then you're a socialist. If you teach that, you're a communist. If you talk about this, you're not American. And yet, we know that the January 6th is literally right around the corner. And last year, there was an attack on the Capitol and people saying they got it wrong. You know, the people didn't want us to march and they harmed us. And blacks have been marching and getting kicked in the head, I don't know, 1860 what? So what you know, I don't get down, but I get stronger because things have to continue to go forward. We have to keep moving forward. So that's
we can't keep running in circles, though.
That's it. We got to move forward because right now, yeah.
You know, now I mean, losing the honorable Archbishop Desmond Tutu is like losing Dr. Martin Luther King all over again. You know, he died way too young. But if we didn't have a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you know, I mean, there's a possibility Jim Crow would still be alive today. And that's an awful time period.
I actually wrote an article called Jim Crow's Got a New Pair of Shoes. Because I actually don't think Jim Crow ever left.
In certain ways, yes. Yes, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. You know, and it's clear, and disparity in sentencing and policing in the communities, that it definitely has not left. And but that means we have to keep fighting.
Yes.
And that's what makes it so painful, and it's so obvious. But when you watch people try to distort the record, and calling racism not racism, then that's where again you run into battles.
I was reading this college. New course. It's a public college. I'm not even going to talk about the college, but a college has a course called The Real America. And The Real America is saying that everything that the 1619 Project, if someone's got a thing on, the 1619 Project is nothing but a communist plot to take over America. And the real America is built on hope, justice, and equality. That's what this outline in this college, I was shocked. I'm thinking, I almost want to take the course just to hear what the crap they're going to say and be amazed by what you could say. Like, really, it was built.
Well, we have to think that some people's realities are different from ours. Mm-hmm. And so for some people, that is the real America for them. But for other people, they have different realities.
I actually think they may not consider us blacks, people of the sun, people. So I think they're not really talking for us.
Okay, well, that's a legitimate thought, because for one thing, the whole problem with the policing is really about treating people, human beings like you and me, like we're less than human.
Right.
That was the whole point. They don't see us, and they treat us as though we're less than human. It's okay for Derek Chauvin to put his foot on somebody's throat until he dies. That's their mentality. That is their thought process. So that's not surprising. But the way they are trying to legitimize their thoughts, and creating a race war while they're doing it, but all of this is basically leading, in my opinion, to a head-on collision for purposes of regaining power in the legislative structure and to regain power in the presidency, so that, you have such division that it's going to impact the voter outcome. All of this is about the rhetoric, the fueling of a race war, the anti-CRT, all of that. Roads lead to, I want to regain power so I can be on top again, because I don't think I am. And I feel like I'm slipping. Their mentality.
Yes, Mr. Tabor.
Yeah, well, this is my first time back. I'm usually on a farm. But we have to be willing, that is, progressive people of non-color.
Say something?
People have to be willing to speak up when we hear the racism. We have to.
Right.
However, when I do it all the time, to a point where I don't know what to say, but once they find out I'm a Jew, it's all discounted.
Oh, yeah, you're totally discounted after that. They're like, wait a minute, you're Jewish. Forget it. And that's a sad issue. It's a sad issue.
You think with the evangelical support of Israel and all that stuff, but they, no, there is an overriding anti-Semitism there also, despite Jews in Trump's family. They expect, I even try quoting Jesus and it doesn't get me anywhere. I just said to someone, I said, isn't this time of year about love, understanding, compassion, mercy, all of the things we're supposed to believe in as a community? And someone said, oh, you got it. He's Jewish.
Again, and I don't understand how a human being can literally function on that type of mentality thinking, where I can just discount someone because ... Like, I totally discount you. Like, you were talking as a person, but now you're not even a human. So now I can actually mentally, consciously dismiss you. That's a scary thought. And I do, before we get started with the show, I'd like to thank all the people who watch us every Wednesday at 6 p.m. I'm losing my time here. 6 p.m. and we are now going into a new year. We've had some shootings today recently. A cop was shot here in Silver Springs at a traffic stop. We do know that the young lady down in Baltimore, she passed away from her car being ambushed. We do know that there was another shooting I know in New York City of a cop being ambushed also. I am not for anarchy. And anarchy means this is not going to work. Anarchy doesn't work. Revolutions work, and could you call that anarchist? I don't know. I mean, that's a whole different show, but I don't believe in it, and I just want to denounce it publicly. People know how I stand and how I feel about people and humanity, and we all have a job to do, but we can do this with a fairness and with some type of sense of decorum that we can live together in this ecosystem. So, Marilyn, please introduce our guests.
Oh, today we are doubly blessed because we have two different guests.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to speak about prison ministry as well as some other things that they want to talk about, and also prison reform to a certain level. I would like to introduce Mr. Dawkins first. Is that okay, Mr. Dawkins?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes, we hear you well.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm Joel Dawkins' friend, and he gave me the information. So I'm not Joel Dawkins. I just spoke to him. He's like on his way on and trying to get on, but I'm his friend Leroy. But I don't know. I came up under his name.
Oh, no. I changed it. You came up under Leroy. I changed it. So I changed it back. So that's why I was seeing the top of your head, and I was like, hey, could you adjust that?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm new to
well,
this.
he'll be on.
That is okay. He'll be on soon. We could wait. We could start with Ms. Jacobs. Well, he already knows his bio. So let me start with his bio so we could know about him. And then after that, we'll play the video introducing Ms. Jacobs. And then after that, hopefully, Mr. Dawkins will be on. Okay, sounds good. Sounds good to me. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. I'm kidding. Okay, so introducing Minister Joel Dawkins, who was born on January 6, 1951, and he was raised in New York City in the heart of the Patterson Public Housing Projects. He also attended public school in the area of New York City. He was primarily raised by his mom, who single-handedly brought him up in the Christian faith. While growing up in New York City as an African-American at-risk and troubled young man, he faced challenges with drug addiction. He served time at Rikers Island. And in searching for his identity, he ventured off from his faith and joined the Nation of Islam. After realizing that Jesus Christ was personally, why am I having problems with this word? Personally, thank you. The truth. Okay, I need to admit somebody in. There we go. Sorry. After realizing that Jesus Christ was personally the truth, way, and the eternal light, he accepted him as his Lord and Savior and continued in the Christian faith. As a result of his experience of serving time in prison and his ability to support and encourage other ex-offenders, he became an ordained and licensed minister under the leadership of the Rock City Church in Baltimore, Maryland, where he has served for several years as the director of the evangelism and prison ministry. His responsibilities included, but is not limited to, coordinating outreach events and training and equipping others who have the desire to serve as a volunteer in prison ministry. Mr. Dawkins has traveled internationally to share his faith and to testify on how he overcame drugs, prison life, and the dark past on the streets of New York. He is currently traveling and hosting a weekly men's fellowship on Tuesday nights to provide counseling, prayer, and moral support to men from all walks of life, regardless of their color, creed, religion, financial, or educational background. So that is Minister Dawkins. He is the one we are waiting for. As soon as he comes in, of course, we will let him in and we will continue. In the meantime, I am going to play a video that is going to introduce us to Miss Jacobs. And so I'm sharing screen and sharing everything. So here we go with the video.
This is the house where my mother raised 7 children. I can remember this is where I was living when I first started using drugs, when I was introduced to crack cocaine.
I met this older man who was probably about 20 years older than me, who shot some heroin in my arm. And my life went downhill from that moment on.
Heroin, the street name for heroin, became Mondrea Jacobs' obsession. At 12, she faced the harsh realities of living from one drug fix to the next.
I began to hang out with people whose lifestyle was to drink and to drug and to party and smoke reefer and commit crimes and hang out in all night bars, and I just lived for drugs. I woke up using drugs. I went to bed using drugs. Drugs was my life. I would go in the bathroom in the 7th grade and shoot up in the bathrooms. In my lunch period, I would go and shoot up. I would be smoking marijuana around the back of the school building while everybody else was in the lunchroom having lunch.
Mondrea's mother feared her daughter's addiction would kill her. Out of desperation, she had her own daughter arrested and placed in a children's center. For 2 years, Mondrea remained in the center and was drug-free. When she went back to her old hangouts and old friends, her addiction resurfaced with a vengeance.
I would prostitute and sell my body to get the drugs, steal from people, rob people, selling drugs for drug dealers.
Drugs were slowly destroying Mondrea's life. But at certain moments, Mondrea remembered her grandmother's faith and wondered if there was still hope.
My grandmother instilled the word of God so deep in us. There was a voice that would constantly speak to me and remind me that there was still a little speck of hope for me. I would smoke crack, and while I was smoking it, I would be praying at the same time.
Soon the drive to obtain drugs exacted a deadlier toll. Mondrea never intended to hurt anyone with the gun she carried.
I went into a nightclub with the intention of finding someone to rob to satisfy my drug habit. And I tried to lure a guy out with no intentions of harming him. When I told him to give me his money, he refused, and I wound up shooting him.
Mondrea didn't stay to find out if the man was alive.
My lawyer came back and told me, you're facing 20 years to life. And I got on my knees. And I cried out to God like a baby.
When the sentence was delivered, Mondrea and her lawyer were stunned. The judge sentenced Mondrea to serve 1 year in prison and then 2 years probation. While on parole, she was drug-free. But the day her probation ended, she decided to celebrate.
I just knew that there was no way that I could go back and use drugs again. But I did. I used again.
Immediately, the drugs began to take their toll on Mondrea's body.
I was down to 60 pounds. I thought I had AIDS. I really felt like that I was just forsaken by God.
One night, she sold her body for $20. She left to get high, promising the man she would come back. When she didn't return, the man who bought her for $20 came after her with a gun.
I could actually feel when the bullets were coming across my face, and as close as that person was to me, there's no way that those bullets should have missed me.
After that near-death experience, Mondrea knew that her life had to change.
I began to go to church, and I wanted to change. There was something inside of me that kept reminding me that I was better than this, that I was better than a drug addict, and that Jesus really loved me. I gradually stopped using drugs. I got convicted. And my conviction led to a conversion. And it caused me to cry out to God. See, at first I was just calling on God. But I really, really cried out to God after I got shot at. I went from smoking ounces of crack cocaine and got down to $100 worth, $50 worth, and $20 worth, and $10 worth, and $5 worth, until after I kept going to church Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, God just totally took the desire from me.
Today, Mondrea is drug-free.
I do not have temptation for drugs. 21 years clean now, and I just do not have temptation. I have gone into places where they were smoking drugs and drinking to pray for people, and it never bothered me. I just see it as a piece of poison now.
Mondrea now helps the homeless in her city with a nonprofit ministry called Never Say Never.
I love Jesus so much because he first loved me. I love him because I can depend on him when I can't depend on nobody else. My priority now is to win souls for Jesus Christ, to let my light shine so men can see my good works and glorify the Father. Never say never, because God never gives up on us, and he never gave up on me.
Wow. Well, do you mind if I call you Mondrea? Well, no problem. That was just so powerful, so very, very powerful. And I have to say, although the video is a couple of years old, you don't look like you aged at all. And you look so much healthier, because we know that you haven't been in that life for a really long time. What do you want to tell us about yourself?
Well, I just want to say that, I just had so many thoughts running through my head as I was watching that. And every time I watch it, I have so many flashbacks. The video actually says 21 years, but it's actually been 32 years.
Wow.
So it's been actually 32 years. And, I want to first say this to all my brothers and sisters that are online. First of all, thank you, Attorney Pierre. You're one of my favorite people, and you look so pretty tonight. Thank you.
Well, you look very pretty as well. Everybody looks pretty. We're a gorgeous group.
Absolutely. Wonderful people. And to the host, a freedom fighter over there, bless you, my brother. And to all of you, I just feel some really good energy here. I just have to say that I just want to give honor to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who is the head of my life. I'm sitting here in my office now. And, had it not been for the Lord on my side, I have no idea where I would be. After, going through that lifestyle of crime and drugs and violence, the video only gave just a snippet of what I went through, because no one can really tell it all, I was raised in Southeast Washington, D.C. by a single parent who raised 6 other siblings. And my mother did everything she could to try to, keep us on the straight and narrow path while fighting her own demons. And my father was absent from the home. And as a result, we took our own path and went our own way, to try to find ourselves. And as a result, some of us got involved with prison and drugs and the lifestyle. It goes with the territory. When you grew up in Southeast Washington, I went to Anacostia Senior High in Garfield Elementary School in Southeast Washington as well. And when I got off of drugs, I had a burning desire. To help people. And so I wound up opening 10 outreach centers. 10.
Wow.
And I came under the covenant of the United Black Fund, where Dr. Calvin Rolock was my godfather. And I walked into his office one day with this little raggedy piece of paper. And I said, I want to start an outreach center. I want to help some people. He said, well, what you got? I said, I ain't got nothing but some hope. And I got a message to tell the people. So he pushed a button on his desk and he said, Attorney Shirley Jefferson, come down here. I want you to meet this young lady. She got some fire and some passion, and she used to use drugs and blah, blah, blah. And Shirley came in and they set up my nonprofit for me right there on the spot and had me signing off on stuff and got my tax ID number. And I was like, Lord, he said, now you're doing something. You wasn't doing nothing when you walked in here, Mondrea. So as a result, my name kind of got out there and I started doing a lot of television shows. I had my own radio show and I served on Mayor Anthony Williams' task force. In fact, I served on about 4 or 5 of Mayor Anthony Williams' task force. I served on Sharon Pratt Kelly's task force for program development committee, and I was the campaign manager for Calvin Gurley, and I was able to make a lot of difference in the DC, in the decisions that they made in terms of implementing programs and services for homeless people, because I was homeless, living in a homeless shelter
and the Coalition for the Homeless on Spring Road, Northwest Washington, D.C. So they appointed me and another young man because they wanted to hear from a male's perspective and a female's perspective of what it was like actually living in this homeless shelter. We were fortunate enough to have apartments, but it was still shelter under that construction. And so I was able to attend the board meetings with the mayor and give my inside scoop on what I think they should be doing and what they're not doing and how they need to modify this and make changes. And I believe my voice was heard and I made a difference in that area. And, since then I've gone on to start my company, Jacobs Enterprise Consulting, where I went to college. And when I was on drugs, I repeated the seventh grade 3 times and, got through that span in my life and, begin to encourage myself and pray and go to church and surround myself around people who were positive and people who sold into me. And so then I went to college and I'm a legal analyst and got my business management. And, I started a business called Jacobs Enterprise Consulting. That's why I'm sitting down in my office. Jacobs Enterprise Consultants, where I help people set up their nonprofits, bylaws, articles, and I write business plans and proposals and anything in that area. And so I am a person who I used to get up and use drugs every day. I don't know how much time I have. I don't want to take too much time. I used to get up and use drugs every day, and I had a passion. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner was just drugs. Now I have a different passion. I can't get up. I can't go through my day unless I know I am helping someone. So I have a women's ministry that I do on Mondays at 9:30. I mentor a lot of women now, and I've traveled to Haiti, Africa, Turks, Bahamas, different international countries, and preaching and teaching. And I do a lot of women's conferences and revivals, and I do a lot of outreach events where I set up the moon bounces for the kids. We feed the people. We give out book bags, school supplies, and so forth. And I also have a partnership with Daryl Green. Daryl Green and I have been friends for 31 years. Daryl Green.
You might want to tell people who Daryl Green is because not everybody's a football fan.
Okay. Daryl Green is number 28 on the former Redskins, quarterback for the Redskins. He's a good friend of mine, and his wife, and he called my number in 1988, and they asked me would I, spearhead their foundation, the Daryl Green Youth Life Foundation. And I didn't know a typewriter from a keyboard at that time. So I was trying to start my own foundation. So as a result, I joined forces with Charles Mann and Art Monk and Daryl, and they would bring tractor trailers over to my centers. I went into the hardest. Let me go a little deeper into this. I don't know if some of you remember Potomac Gardens public housing right on Capitol Hill, where they were killing people and they're bringing dead bodies out every day. And so a lot of people didn't want to go up in there. And I said, you know what do I have to lose? I'm not supposed to be here no way. So I went in with my faith and took a team of volunteers, and we went in and they gave me this building, and then public housing gave me another building over 258th Street. And they were just giving me keys to the city. And I do apologize. I actually have chairs coming in to my office to start my new podcast, and the driver of the delivery is on the phone. But I went into public housing, and we did after school and back to school and fed them lunch and tutored those kids, and did everything that we could to help aid and assist our Afro-American at-risk youth. And so today they've done several articles on me, and I'm really not into it. I'm just more so I just want to help people. I'm not in it for the money. I just want to, encourage people to never say never. So that's my theme, and that's my dream, to bring hope to women, ex-offenders, single women, people who are struggling with the addictions of mental illness and drug addiction. So that's what I do. That's who I am. I've written 2 books. I've written one book called Pastors Let My People Go. And the other book is The Word of God. Actually, The Word of God Glows in the Dark. That's the cover of one of my books right there. And so I'm just here just trying to live my life on purpose. trying to see what I can do to help people. And I want to kind of say something in regards. I heard somebody say earlier about, I really believe that we're definitely embarking upon a one world government, a one world system. And I know we can really get into all of that. I don't want to get too deep, but yeah, I think that one of the things, and this is not about trying to be really religious as much as it's about being practical. I think that we need to bring prayer back, because prayer change. It doesn't matter what your religion is. You could be atheist, you could be Muslim, Catholic. We need to pray. And I believe when they took prayer out of schools, and I think that I hear a lot of people say, let's put prayer back in schools. Well, first prayer got to come back to the home. How you going to get it in the school building? You ain't praying in the house. So I just believe that, prayer changes everything. And I am a devout Christian. I believe strongly in my faith. I believe that there is a God.
Let me ask you something, Ms. Jacobs.
Yes, sir.
We have talked about service on here, and Mike Tabor, he was on a guest on one of our shows about the things he did in the civil rights movement. And we had talked about this repeatedly with so many of our guests about everyone serves, who makes a difference serves humanity. They don't serve themselves. But it's very difficult to awaken the sleepy and out of their slumber into service. Is there besides hitting them over the head with a broom, what way do you think that we can reach people? Because that's why we do this, is to reach people to understand that there's a better way. There is a way in service. So the question is, how do we wake them up? What's some of your ideas of waking them up? I know one of them is prayer, but are we just down to tapping each person on the shoulder and asking them the question?
Well, first of all, great question. Well, first of all, we can only do our part. Everybody has a part to play. We're not going to be able to save everybody. That's just not going to happen. It's just a reality. We're not going to save everybody. But I believe if we meet people where they are and bring them where they need to be, I believe that the church, play a major part in going out to reach the unreachable. Now, when I was coming up, opening up my outreach centers, you would hear about the Boys and Girls Club and United Black Fund and my ministry, Never Say Never, and, love thy neighbor. And you would hear about all of these entities that were just walking out, they were knocking on doors, and they was passing out turkeys, and you saw signs and banners, and you saw trucks and pickup trucks, and people had big watermelons all on the back of the truck, giving them away, and school supplies, and the hearts of the people have to change, turn back to the people. We don't have the compassion, because how can you help somebody you don't care about? You have to first care about somebody. You have to care. I think that people need to take a personal inventory of where we are as a people. Do we care about our people? Do we care about our community? Do we care about our neighborhood? Do we care about the lady next door who just had a major operation and nobody's there to take care of her? The little old lady who had no children. We used to knock on the door and take pies over to the senior citizens, and we would stop and talk to that young man who had his pants pulled down. Now we point our finger and we judge him. Oh, look at that old boy. Oh, he probably, we got to get back to taking time out and being kind and sharing words of hope and bringing words of encouragement. Because one of the greatest things about Martin Luther King that we all love, most of us have never met him, but we met him through his words. And I just believe there's power in words. We need to get back to encouraging people. We need to get back into the school saying down with dope, up with hope. I mean, we need to get back to, taking it by force. That's my answer.
Well, could I just ask, I am inspired by what you're saying, but if you had a loving mother, a caring mother, if someone came to you when you were addicted to crack cocaine with the messages you just put out, would you have listened to that person at 17, 18, 19?
And I did listen. Because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And, even a drug addict, I'm going to say this to you. most of the drug addicts and prostitutes and people that are out there on drugs and going to stores and stealing and selling their body like I did, they don't really want to be like that. But they found this place and this atmosphere, this destructive atmosphere that is giving them security. So now, back to what you said. I had a problem with religious people. And when I say religious people, I had a problem with people who just wanted to tell me, come to church, come to church, come. No. You are the church. Show me some love while I'm standing right here. Because you're telling me on Thursday to come to your church on Sunday, I could have committed suicide between Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I'm a strong believer in that. I believe that all of us have a part to play. We are more alike than we are different. And I believe that God created all of us for such a time as this. And we are common people under one nation, under God. And we got to get back to being kind, to being loving, to going the extra mile, to buying somebody some food, to buying somebody some shoes, to meeting the needs of the unmet needs, and to showing the love of God the only way we know how. And you know what? You may never preach the Bible. You may never preach the gospel. You may never go be a preacher or pastor in the church. But love covers all, and love hides a multitude of sin. And I believe one of the things that I learned, I yearn for, and this is why I used to fall in the hands of the wrong man. I always wanted someone to just give me a hug. I always wanted, I'm telling you, hugs are really powerful. I know we can't hug like we used to now because of the pandemic, but I'm saying your words can hug somebody. Your kindness can hug somebody. But back then, I just wanted somebody to wrap their arms around me and say, girl, you're jacked up, but you're going to get back up one day. We fall down, but we get back up again. And these are the people who I remember now. These are the people, the school counselors. When I was in Cedar Knoll Children's Center doing life, Miss Underdown, I'll never forget that lady. Because you know what she said to me? She said, Mondrea, trouble don't last always. And she never quoted the scripture.
And I agree with you, because I have, after talking with many people for many years, and wherever they are, like you said, meet them where they are. After they've come clean, they say, Paul, the things you said to me, I remember. I held that in my darkest time. So I think it's exactly what you said. And I definitely feel and teach that people have to develop compassion. Compassion just doesn't fall out of the sky. It doesn't. It has to be practiced and learned. People can be kind, but that's not the same as being compassionate. And compassionate is what transmits from heart to heart, from vibrational code through energy to the other person. Kindness does transmit, but compassion soaks in. And that's the difference.
And I want to say this. Good point. All of us have fallen short of the glory of God. All of us have fallen short of the glory of God. There's not one perfect one among us but God. Now, with all that being said and done, mine may have been drug addiction. Somebody else's may have been depression, homelessness, spouse abuse, bad marriage, bad divorce. So when we think about our pain, and we think about all we've gone through and the trials and the turmoils that we face, compassion comes out of that, because we have to understand that we need each other and we need somebody. We're not an island. So if I can remember, Mr. Dawkins is here. If I can remember that, where I come from, see, here's the key. People have forgotten where they come from. Oh, that's a touchy subject right there. That's real touchy, because none of us, most of the people I know anyway, wasn't born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And I'm saying all this to say that I think that if we be very conscious of where we come from, it's more easily for us to remember how to help someone else.
You make great points. And one of the things that I could add to that is that Dr. Paul Dyer, I have actually watched him in action be a person that is extremely compassionate. When he was introduced to environmental injustices in South County, in the southern portion of Anne Arundel County, Maryland, compassion caused him to drive his car all the way down to the location in South County to eyeball, to witness the environmental injustice. You know, I haven't gotten there yet, but he has, and he's my model or my mentor for me to get there. So compassion is actually involving yourself to the extent that you care, that you go follow where the injustice is and do something about it. Be a change agent.
Amen. Amen. And I'm going to say it again. Love is like a beautiful day, but it isn't love until you give it away. And I just think that all of us have something to offer. Maybe you can say, hey, I'm not that preacher, Mondrea. I'm not going to try to be the preacher. But hey, here's a little love offering. Here's a little token. Or maybe I'll count me in. I got 10 book bags. Count me in. I can provide 10 sandwiches. And I think that exactly if collectively, if like-minded people come together, we can change this world. We can change it one person at a time. We can do it.
And I know we talked about, I want to touch on prison and prison reform. What is some of your ideas? Because we have a lot of projects around Maryland right now that this has to change. Because I mean, it just has to change. So
may I add something to that, Dr. Dyer?
Yeah.
I just read something that is entirely relevant to prison reform, because if marijuana is legalized, and I'm not saying I necessarily agree with that concept, and all of the sentences, the criminal sentences, are vacated, and those people walk out of prison doors right now, hundreds of them would be in the community and in the streets. How do we handle that?
Well, we do know they won't be able to vote, so that's okay for the people who letting them out, because we have to get back their voting rights, because a lot of them were taken away. How we handle that, besides just the influx of jobs and space and living space and food, it kind of goes back to one of our shows. Mike Rosenbaum, who was running for governor, who pulled out, he had said something very pertinent. Maryland is the richest state in the United States. And we could give 250,000 jobs to everyone right now making $35,000. Right now, we can give it. So that doesn't seem to be a problem. So the question is why couldn't we do it? It's because, and Mike Tabor touched on this, Michael Tabor touched on this, thank you, is that white people or the people that are in power have to be able to do something or want to do something for justice and not keep it for themselves. That's the only way, because the way it seems like now is that we keep screaming at the wall and they just keep saying you're whining about it. And you need to pull yourself up by your own personal bootstraps. You need to do something for yourself. Why are you always begging? Why are you always asking? Wow, right? And so we get dehumanized by the things we are trying to do. And then we get called out and made it. And then we talked about weaponizing words, socialism, communism, all this anti-stuff of being a human being. And then so it gets dismissed by the majority of the population. Minister Dawkins, you're on.
Oh, Jesus.
Minister Dawkins, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes. We had your introduction. Thank you for coming on. I know you're a busy man, so you're here.
First of all, I'd like to apologize to everyone for running late. Got backed up into traffic, but I thank God I made it here safely. I caught a little bit what you were saying, and I just like to interject something, about prison reform. I believe in education instead of incarceration. And I say that because coming up in the streets of New York, a young man, I was educated to the streets, but not educated to things that I should have known. And I think what I see when I go inside the prisons, especially with a lot of young men, and this may be a little off the course, but a lot of young men are knowledgeable to the streets. They're knowledgeable to the crime. But what I try to tell them that the crime will never change, but the person who commit the crime can change. We have to begin to snatch a lot of these young men at an early age and begin to speak into their lives. See, there's two types of men that go to prison. There's the guy that's an opportunist, and there's another man that's a mentor. You know, the opportunist, he goes in there, he try to hook up with everybody he know, and he don't really want to change. Then there's the guy that's the mentor. Most of them are older men who see a young man with potential and pull him in because they realize that he's uneducated far as the world, but he's educated far as the street. And I believe that we need to begin. I was thinking today, where do we begin? We have a problem. How do we fix it? You know, we can put money in it all day, but what are the results that we are getting back if we don't snatch them from the cradle? And I was thinking today, we need to men that come out of prison that's really trying to get their life together. I would love to take these men, form an organization, and put them in the schools and allow them to speak to the youth from their experience, not being a theorist, but being a practitioner, knowing what the streets results will bring them to. And I think we need to start early instituting this with young people because, you know, I came out of the streets of New York, and like many of us, we were raised in neighborhoods. Now we raised in with boys in the hoods. And I find that a lot of young men want to really be, when I go into jails, you know, I had some young men and I asked a question to them. And the question was, how many of you were raised in a household with a father? Don't raise your hand. And I can look at the faces drop. And that told me part of the problem that we're facing, because part of the problem is that the fathers are in prison, on drugs, not doing too much for themselves. Not all, but majority of men. So we got to look at rebuilding fathers to take their responsibility as fathers to mentor and speak into their sons' lives, because we have a generation that's totally lost, and we have a generation of fathers that's totally in prison, incarcerated.
This, Minister Dawkins, thank you for coming on, and then I'd like to thank everyone again for listening to You Be the Judge every Wednesday at 6 p.m. This is not a pushback, but there are black men who have not come to terms that they are broken, that they need the help, that they need service, that they need mentorship, and they're fighting it. And as they're fighting it, they're spewing out to the next generation nothing but sickness, trauma, and sadness. And they're in a relationship that they believe they should be in when they are sick, sad, and traumatized, and they're still not asking for help. And then when you reach out to them, you talk to them and say, hey, young blood, let me talk to you. And they're like, yo, I got this. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because your tenseness right now for me talking to you actually lets me know right then and there you don't have it. You have fallen from it. Or you were just never taught it. And that's got to be okay right now. Because just like Miss Jacobs says, you got to meet them where they're at. But if they don't admit to where they're at, they're still running their mouth and they're going to keep running that game.
Well, I'd like to add something to that. Some water, some plant, and God get an increase. All we can do is plant. We're not going to be able to reach everybody. All we can do is plant.
I agree. All we can do is plant. God provides the increase.
When I know you guys are both in the hold on, I know you guys are both in the room, but when one talks, one's got to mute because you guys are echoing off each other. That's all that happened. So what was someone saying?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say something. I worked at the World Bank, and they each ethnic group had a Saturday school where they taught their children their culture, and we don't have that. In the beginning, after slavery, the churches were the places that we would go to get all of the learning and all of what we needed. The churches are not even doing that. I appreciate what Drea is doing, but the majority of the churches don't open their doors up on Saturdays. We have to come have a conclave or something to come bring these ministers together and try to make a program so that you'll have rites of passage programs, because we have to understand that this government is also playing a major role in why the father is out of the house. When they had welfare mothers, you couldn't have the father in the house. They've done a lot to break up the family, which is the main structure in any society. So we have to go back and try to bring together people who are going to sit down and say, these are the problems. What can we do for that? Because my eyes were blown when I found out the Indians have Saturday school, the Chinese have Saturday schools. Everybody have Saturday schools, and they might, profit from the public education during the week. But on Saturdays and on Sundays, they're bringing their kids in. And that's why you don't see them running around in the streets. But we're not doing that. We used to do that.
Let me share this with you. I must share this with you because in Anne Arundel County, a Saturday school has begun in the African American community, and it's called Al-Kebulon Shule. And you can go to alkebulonshule.org and learn more about that Saturday school. It's at its budding stages, and it is growing. So I think that there's hope, and I believe that there is a possibility. But you should definitely tap into the resources and go to the website and find out what they are doing. It is a start. It is not it's blossoming into a larger project. But yes, Saturday school does exist, at least in the African American community in Anne Arundel County.
Hold on, Wilbur. I know Holly has a question, and I will get right. So I want to make a statement, and then I'm going to get Holly to ask a question. Let me know where you're at. Put it in the inbox, because I do know a lot of Black men organizations around Maryland, and we may not be where you need us to be where you are. The 100 Black Men of Maryland I belong to, we have a Saturday school. I know that the many of the Greek organizations have a Saturday school. I know the Masonic organizations have a Saturday school. I know there's Black Men's Network has a Saturday school. Again, we are just not enough out there, or we're not in a place that you need us to be, and that's what we need to know. Because you're right about it's just not enough, and I think that answers Minister Dawkins' things. I think there's more Black men need to go with him into the jails, into the prisons, to show that we're waiting for you, we're working for you, we're here for you. Holly, what's your question?
Let me just humbly say that this is a subject
I really don't know that much about. I mean, I have no personal experience, but what jumped out at me is of all the people who grow up with no father, how would they know what the expectations for a father would be if you were a father, if you were a male? Or how would you know as a woman what you would expect for a man to be a father? Isn't that
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Oh,
sure, of course.
Well, first of all, there is no manual. There's no manual. There's no manual to becoming a father or a mother, you know. And I'm gonna let Mr. Dawkins say something, but I need to say this, that life, I put us side by side because it looked like it's not working the other way. Life never gives you what you deserve, but only what you fight for. I'm looking at freedom fighters. It's time to fight. For the kingdom of heaven suffer violence, and the violent take it by force. The devil has taken our children by force. Drugs have taken our children by force. The streets have taken our children by force. So when you're talking about coming up against this type of force, you're going to have some power, and you're going to have some powerful people. We got too many chickens in the hen house. We got too many people who are scared and who are afraid. We got people scared to chastise the children, scared to say something, scared to go to the White House, scared to speak up, scared to say, I love Jesus, scared to say I'm a Muslim, scared to say I'm an atheist, scared, whatever you're scared of. But God does not give us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. And what is going to have to happen, even this group right now, all of us that's on this line right now, we can take advantage of this moment right now, form something together. And by the time the summer comes, when the weather break, we can do something. I heard the lady say that and I appreciate your honesty. I like people like you because at least you're honest. You say, hey, I don't have a clue, but hey, here it is. I like that because we have too many people who pretend they know what to do and not getting any results. We need people who are not ashamed of the gospel. We need people who are not ashamed to take it by force. And people who are not ashamed to look these children in the eye and say, brother, you're going to die and go to hell. You're on your way to a Christless hell and you get ready to die. What can I do to help you? We have to start throwing anchors out to people and encouraging them. But it's going to take some strength and some power and a whole lot of prayer.
Dr. Paul, I would love to connect with you. You mentioned some groups that I would love to be interested in getting involved. But, you know, what I do understand, is this, you know, there are many young African-American men that are fatherless. And I had a discussion last night on our podcast that we do. And that subject sort of came up. And it may sound a little odd what I'm getting ready to say. You know, we got the young men have lost their identity. They don't know who they are. And if you don't know your identity, the streets will give you one. You know, that's why you listen to them today. You ask them, what's their name? My name is Tupac. My name is Rasheen. You know, because they're looking for an identity. And what I tell a lot of young men is this. Inside of you already, there is a father. You are a father inside of you. What God created you to be a father. But many young men are fathers. So men like you and I are Paul. We have to be advocates for young men. We got to step into their world without fear, because you know a lot of them are looking for us to do that. I have had a young man in the jail. This guy was about 6'4", looked like 300 something pounds. And I was talking about fatherhood and da-da-da-da-da. And at the end, this big guy come up to me and he says, man, I want to ask you something. I said, oh, Lord, here we go. And he dropped his head on my shoulder, and he cried. And something just told me to call him son. I said, son, it's all right. And this young, big, tall man cried like a baby because I called him son. I gave him my identity. I recognized him. And a lot of these young African-American young men out there today, they're wondering why on the news.
They're breaking.
17 years. Can you hear me?
Yeah. You're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking.
Well, can I make a suggestion? I'm sorry, yes. Minister Dawkins. Can I make a suggestion? Can I remove the other Mondrea Jacobs, because that way there'll be more bandwidth for your video and audio? I could remove it, and I think it might make it easier for us to hear you. So go ahead. Sorry, I'm removing it. No problem.
So I actually before you finish,
mm-hmm.
Go ahead. I actually
and you know, a lot of.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to let you finish because I want to say something. I thought. Go ahead, Mr. Dawkins. Go ahead, please.
And what's happening? A lot of the young men look at the older men, and they have lost respect because we are trying to be like them instead of being an example of how they should be. You know, and like I said, you know, I've been in the prison ministry over 17 years, and I have encountered all different types of men. And a lot of things that I find, a lot of them are hurting. I like what you said, a lot of them are hurting and broken because they don't have an identity to connect with a father. And I say that because that's very important as African-American men, that we need to reach out to some of these young men and find someone that we can father. I have about 10 or 12 young men that I put up under my wings, that I speak into their lives and, you know, encourage them. You know, they call me. One called me the other week, man, he's getting me to be a father. And I said, man, congratulations. I said, you're going to be a great father. It's going to be all right. So we need to encourage a lot of these young men. So go ahead, Doctor.
We're going to continue the show, but the show for the podcast will be cutting off right now. So thank you. If you guys want to watch or listen to any more part of the show, I will keep streaming this live on YouTube and all the social media. But as far as the podcast station, iHeart and Apple Podcasts, it will be cutting off now. If you want to go follow what you've missed, please go over to the YouTube channel or the Facebook channel to catch the rest. So thank everyone for listening to You Be the Judge every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on all your podcast stations.